You've probably seen the headline, "This jellyfish can live forever." Cool, right? Immortality finally achieved by nature, and it picked a jellyfish. No bones, no brain, just a tiny blob smaller than your pinky nail. Sounds like a flex. It is not. Today we're talking about turritopsis dohrnii, the so-called immortal jellyfish, and why, if you actually think about what its immortality involves, it sounds less like a superpower and more like a horror movie on a loop. First, the myth-busting. The jellyfish doesn't live forever the way you're imagining. No eternal youth, no endless adventures. What it actually does is this. When it's injured, sick, starving, or just old and stressed out, instead of dying, its body collapses back into a blob, sinks to the seafloor, and regrows itself as a polyp, basically reverting to a baby stage of life. Imagine being an adult, having a genuinely awful week, and your solution is to turn back into a toddler. Not metaphorically, literally. Your tentacles dissolve, your body restructures, and you start your whole life over from scratch, as a different organism on the family tree of you. This process is called transdifferentiation. Cells that were already specialized, nerve cells, muscle cells, unspecialize and reassign themselves into new jobs. It's biologically wild. It's also exhausting just to describe, let alone live through. Here's the part nobody puts in the headline. This isn't a happy reset button. It's triggered by crisis, starvation, physical injury, sudden temperature shock. The jellyfish doesn't choose to regenerate because life is good. It does it because life has become unbearable for its current body, and reverting to childhood is the only way to avoid simply dying. That means every single immortal jellyfish you hear about has a backstory of repeated catastrophe. Picture restarting your entire life from kindergarten every time you got the flu, lost your job, or had a bad breakup. That's not eternal life. That's an infinite loop of emergency button mashing. Even if you're generous and say, okay, but it survives. Survives as what? When the jellyfish reverts to a polyp, it isn't the same individual continuing on with memories and experience. It's structurally a new organism, built from recycled parts. There is no continuity of self the way we'd want from immortality. Nobody dreams of forever as an endless series of total amnesiac reboots. That's not living forever. That's being deleted and reinstalled over and over, with the only thing surviving being your raw material. And jellyfish don't have brains to begin with, just a diffused nerve net. So even the experience being reset is minimal. The closest human analogy isn't reincarnation. It's more like erasing a hard drive. And here's the kicker. This trick barely matters in practice. Most turritopsis dohrnii don't actually use this ability to cheat death repeatedly. They get eaten. Jellyfish are near the bottom of the ocean food chain. Fish, sea turtles, and other predators don't care that your species has a theoretical reset button. They just eat you before you ever get the chance to press it. So the immortal jellyfish lives, in reality, a life that's just as short and precarious as any other tiny ocean creature, constantly one bad encounter away from becoming someone else's lunch, reset button or not. So you have an organism whose one party trick is regenerate from total bodily collapse, and it almost never even gets to use it because it dies the normal way first. That's like bragging about your fireproof house while living next to a river that floods every spring. Step back and look at the whole package. An organism with no brain, no memory, no real continuity of self, whose only escape from death is to collapse and rebuild from a stressful, traumatic trigger, and even then, it usually gets eaten before it matters. If a human had this power, it would look less like a gift and more like a curse out of a folktale. You may live forever, but only by being repeatedly destroyed back to childhood, remembering nothing, while everyone around you forgets you ever grew up. And most of the time, something eats you before that even kicks in. That's not immortality you'd wish for. It's the biological equivalent of an infinite respawn in a video game with no checkpoints, no inventory, and enemies that one-shot you most of the time anyway. So next time someone tells you jellyfish solved immortality, you can tell them what immortality actually costs in jellyfish currency. Total identity loss, traumatic resets, and getting eaten anyway. Real immortality, if it's worth having, probably needs to come with your memories intact, something turritopsis dohrnii never had to begin with. If you found this as weirdly unsettling as I did, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what creature you want roasted next.